Hello, attractive and open-minded internet person that would never downvote a video based on the title alone. I know I'm a total stranger to you, but I'm gonna ask you to do me a gigantic favor and hear me out first. Make no mistake, Final Fantasy VII Remake is a great game. So great that I think people are forgetting something very important. The original Final Fantasy VII, released in 1997, was not about comically oversized swords, corporate greed, magic reincarnation mist, environmentalism, big bangs, love rectangles, cyborg dinosaurs, unhinged super soldiers turned Satan, or racing giant fantasy fowl. It was a story about accepting loss. It was about that from very early on because one of the director's first mandates was that one of the main characters die a sudden and tragic death. The guy had just lost his mom. So I had to lose my 1997 waifu. But the character designer from the original turned director, Tetsuya Kingdom Hearts Nomura, eventually introduces to the remake what I think is the absolute worst trope you could ever introduce to a story that was about accepting loss. For me, the ending jumped the shark, which is really saying something when it comes to Final Fantasy. Actually, to say it jumped the shark doesn't really do it justice. For me, the ending was a peanut butter and mayonnaise sandwich riding atop a nuked fridge, jumping over a shark, punching boulders. The ending broke my heart in a way that was definitely not intended, and worse, it broke my immersion. Today, I'm gonna go over the entire game and break down the reason why some fans are more excited than ever for Part 2, as my hype level's more or less on E. Stick around for a video that's probably gonna be more divisive than pizza topped with pineapple and copies of The Last Jedi. Today on... Hey Coggers, I'm gonna get this out of the way right here and now. Spoilers, 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 spoilers. Lots of spoilers are gonna happen. You've been warned. Hello there, I am Editing Rick, or Salty Rick today. We've never really done an opinion piece like this on the channel before, and we probably won't again. I make this video knowing full well it's likely to be downvoted into oblivion, because this video game is the internet's newest sweetheart. People are head over heels in love with this game. At the time of this recording, we are smack dab in the middle of the honeymoon phase, and I get it. Probably 70 to 80% of this game I love too. That boss fight was so goddamn fun. When it's doing its job, being Final Fantasy VII, it's incredible. Occasionally it's perfect, but when it's being Kingdom Hearts 4, I got a problem. I take great issue with the overly meta, overly self-aware, passive-aggressive, tone-deaf, and adolescent plot devices that director Tetsuya Nomura needlessly introduces to the narrative of the game. It's my opinion that they completely and utterly undermine the original's themes of accepting loss. This is probably a good point for me to say, believe it or not, I'm not trying to make anybody feel bad for liking the additions to this game. But if you did like them, I'm gonna say things that are probably gonna make you upset. I probably already have. My intention with this video is to not go pee-pee or poo-poo on your good time with this game. It's more or less just to record my thoughts so I can move on from this. This video is not a personal attack on you or your tastes. I'm sure you're a very nice person that pets puppies and signals all your turns, and I don't want to bum you out. You're allowed to like things on this channel, and you're also allowed to dislike things. Echo chambers are stupid, boring, and dangerous. Look at Twitter. This all probably comes as a shock to you if you only follow us here on YouTube. The last time you saw me interacting with this game was me squeeze sploosh gushing my way through the demo, but that was before I knew things. Holy shit, dude, like they've turned like those old fights into like little cinematic experiences. Like this is some Avengers level shit. This is great.
Even I used to buy into that bullshit. Remembering that makes me even madder.
I'm sad to say I no longer squee for Squeenix. We're currently doing a playthrough of it on Twitch. It should eventually end up here as a Let's Roast. If you want to experience that fresh, you may not want to watch this, but I don't know when it'll finally arrive here on YouTube. I would also like to make it clear that I've been nothing but hyped about this remake since it was announced 5 years ago. I've had very little skepticism where others have. I've been checked out on Final Fantasy since Final Fantasy X, so I haven't been butt mad at the apparently long list of blunders since 2001, though the people that are seem to have good reason. What the fuck is this? I know my butt is a bit angry at Squeenix right now. Alright, now that I've bored everyone to tears with disclaimers and qualifiers, let's get to it. Up front, I'm going to talk about the game in general, the atmosphere around it, and set the stage for the plot analysis. This stuff's pretty important to the claim that the themes the remake ultimately introduces clash with and sabotage sabotage those of the original, that the remake's gonzo ending misses the point of the original. Leave me a comment saying the remake is its own thing and I should go play the original if I want the same story again. I will for sure read it. The remake is not its own thing. No remake is its own thing. This remake is particularly not its own thing because it outright assumes you played the original, making many references to it, and if you haven't played the original, the game will be full of bewildering fan service moments. Yet Square Enix maintains that this is a good jumping on point for the Final Fantasy VII universe, because of course they do. If this game was its own thing, it would be called Final Fantasy XVI, starring another randomly generated K-pop star. The themes of the original are still present and accounted for because the narrative has the same skeletal structure. If you're going to introduce new themes, they need to be able to coexist with and complement the existing themes, not bring the story to a screeching halt to have them literally fight each other on screen. The new one's got good graphics though, so the themes of the original can get fucked! This isn't your grandpa's Final Fantasy VII, bitch! Don't be a pussy and think about the story, just... One argument I consistently see being lodged at people who dare to question the genius of the ending is that we still have the original. That's correct, we do. The blocky 4x3 non-voice acted original, complete with an iffy translation that affects more than simple typos. I adore the original, but many aspects of it haven't aged particularly well. But there was an amazing story there that was limited by the technology of the time. I think it's really disingenuous to pretend you can compare the two as an audio-visual experience. I think the original deserved better than this.
Oh my god!
Look, I wanted to love this game very badly. The original had a fair share of its own narrative problems, but it was like my Star Wars. I think it actually helped me grow as a person. But for me, this game was like a slice of pizza from your favorite pizza place when you were a child. At first, it's better than you remember, but once you've eaten your way to the crust, you discover that there are sprinkles of cat piss on it. It's just a small smattering, but dude, it's cat piss. It would have been a deal breaker had I known. I guess it's on me for not smelling it coming, though. I promise that's my last pizza analogy.
It's because of that great big pizza in the sky that people down there gotta struggle to survive.
They didn't change anything. They just added details. Calm down, man, baby boomer.
Man, baby, millennial, actually. Not that I'm bragging. And, yeah. Okay, details. Go finish your video game and then you can come back and talk with the grown-ups when you're done, sweetie. Leave me a comment saying I'm a knee-jerker that needs to wait for part 2 before I have any kind of a response to this. I will for sure read it. Seriously though, the entire point of this ridiculous dissertation will be to illustrate why I'm not excited for part 2 regardless of what they do. However, they completely managed to capture how endearing the characters of Final Fantasy VII were. That counts for a lot. I completely understand if you never played the original and/or it's all JRPG nonsense to you one way or the other. Or hey, even if you're so dazzled by the game's fun gameplay and good looks, you don't care about anything else. Unfortunately for me, it's not enough to make me look the other way. I think people are in an abusive relationship with this game. It's like somebody who has an unfaithful significant other that happens to be ridiculously attractive. Because they're so damn hot, they don't cheat. They subvert your relationship expectations. The degree to which Square Enix misrepresented this game is debatable, but what is not debatable is that they did misrepresent it. Also known as lying. Final Fantasy VII's characters, world, and story are so beloved that we couldn't start playing with those or changing them in a reckless manner. But the style and presentation, the way they're shown, that we can work with. Lying is not a plot twist, that's just you being a butthole.
Nothing but a bunch of lies.
If you've completed the original and this game and the only thing you think Square tinkered with was the style and presentation, I think you're lying to yourself about Square lying to you. Post-purchase rationalization is a hell of a drug. The story is the point of games like this for me, and this one meant a lot to me back in the day. It makes me sad to see what I think is a highly questionable director attempt to quote-unquote fix it, all under the guise of being subversive and offering players a new experience. We were already getting that with the massively expanded story segments, to drop dead and come back to life just to drop dead again. Gorgeous visual update, the generally fantastic new combat system, the modern take on the score, which is pure eargasms, and the phenomenal voice acting. It pains me deeply to say it, but everything else new that Tetsuya Nomura adds to the story is gratuitous meta trite. People will try to convince you that it's some ingenious meta commentary on toxic fandoms and their expectations. I think that's largely incorrect. These fanboy purists that everybody hates so much had no idea that this game was borrowing plot devices from CW's The Flash until a couple weeks ago. This game has been in active development for 5 years, and people have been asking for it for over 10 years.
I'm afraid your timeline doesn't align, brother.
If it is a commentary on the fans, I think they overreacted a little bit. The backlash to this stuff has been shockingly minimal. I feel fairly confident in saying that the people chanting for a very strict one-to-one remake of this game are so in the minority that they're not worth mentioning. There was no chant, it was a whisper. I think you could fit them all inside of a single GameStop employee lounge. Myself, for instance, welcomed the expanded story announcement with open arms because I love these characters and I love this world. Instead, I think Tetsuya Nomura hijacked certain parts of this project in order to say F you to any of his co-workers that dare oppose his ridiculous ideas. Torn straight from the pages of his Kingdom Hearts playbook. Look, Kingdom Hearts is fine, but it's not Final Fantasy VII. It doesn't belong here. Square peg, round hole. Figure it out. Yes, it's just a theory that the plot device Tetsuya Nomura uses in this game is a representation of people who opposed him at Square Enix. But there is precedent. After watching the 2012 film adaptation of Les Miserables, Nomura charged into the Square Enix office and demanded to turn Final Fantasy 15 into a musical.
La 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 la.
It's my guess that the people that talked him down off the ledge from doing this are maybe the same people who told him it's not a good idea to turn simple plot twists into plot pile drivers in the Final Fantasy VII Remake. We'll probably never know though, because game developers, especially Japanese game developers, can be a little cagey about these kind of details. It's kind of a miracle that we found out for the entire first year of development Tetsuya Nomura didn't even know that he had been assigned as the director to this game. Oh, you dum-dum baby boo-boo bear. I would also like to say that the tropes Nomura introduces to the plot of FF7 I love in other stories where they are appropriate and used by a clever writer. Leave me a comment telling me that Tetsuya Nomura was just a director and he didn't write any of this. I will for sure read it. Seriously though, entertainment industry credits are incredibly nebulous and inexplicit. Luckily, the producer said in an interview that Nomura wrote it, so we don't have to have this discussion. There's also another writer named Nojima. He was also a part of the original. I'm sure there are things I'm going to call out that are Nojima's doing, but the things that I don't like have Nomura's funk all over him, and he was the director and thusly the captain of the ship. I don't think there's any point in splitting hairs. And again, the producer said Nomura wrote the story. It also bears mentioning that Final Fantasy series creator Hironobu Sakaguchi stopped having much of anything to do with the series after Final Fantasy IX, leaving Squeenix in 2004, so he wasn't a part of this. He was a writer on and conceptualized a lot of the stuff in Final Fantasy VII. I think it was a big part of how good the game was. A lot of people point to his departure as the point Final Fantasy kind of went off the rails, or at the very least became very hit or miss. That tracks from my experience because the first one he wasn't all that involved with was my Final Fantasy for a long time. Something just stopped clicking for me. I'm missing the gooch pretty hard right now. Moving on. In order for me to effectively illustrate to you my problems with what Nomura did to the story of this game, I'm gonna have to spoil the ever-loving shit out of it for you. This is actually a huge problem because Square Enix has been striking channels and threatening to sue people who discuss the ending, especially in a negative light. I'm sure we'll be fine though. I'm gonna focus on the stuff I don't like, so it's gonna seem very negative. But I will interject praise where praise is due as much as I can because there's a lot of things in this game that are praiseworthy. A lot of people that had nothing to do with the executive decisions that Nomura made worked very hard and did an unbelievably good job. All these people get back pats and high fives forever. Alright, you've been warned. Ultra Omega Final Spoiler Warning! Alright, so I'm gonna drop one of the biggest nukes right out of the gate here. This game is not a remake of Final Fantasy VII. It is both a pseudo-sequel to Nomura's movie Advent Children and a what-if side story to the original. It's a side-quel. Aren't you glad you waited 10 years for this shit? Surprise! So clever and subversive.
All sales are final.
This game is a whole separate timeline / universe / reality / fix / whatever from the original. Honestly, the game is pitch perfect until you're wandering the streets of Midgar after the first bombing mission. It's here that you realize that they're gonna blow the Sephiroth load in the first 90 minutes of the game, complete with the classic fiery FF7 Sephiroth money shot. Very early on, Cloud is having flashbacks to Nibelheim and visions of Sephiroth. That's okay, even though Sephiroth's character was built to have a huge build-up and a lot of mystique around him. We don't need to do that this time, because he's basically as famous as Darth Vader now. Every living being on the planet played 1997's Final Fantasy VII. It's fine. You gotta show people Sephiroth, even if it's a terrible disservice to the story. It's fine. You gotta show people Sephiroth, even though he wasn't revealed in the original until after you leave Midgar, because marketing! The next words I'm about to say cause me legitimate pain in my heart place. So there are these things called the Whispers of Fate on loan from Harry Potter. They show up whenever the story is deviating too much from the original. It's their job to make sure things more or less stay the same as they did the first time around. What are you trying to say about your co-workers and or the fandom, Nomura? It's so subtle, I don't get it. They first show up in Aerith's introduction scene, one of my favorite moments from the original. They stomp a mud hole in it. Cloud can't see the Whispers of Fate, but Aerith touches him and then he can. Not only do the Nomura ghosts create an unwanted distraction from an important scene, they make Cloud Strife look like an idiot later when he bumps into Aerith a second time and he barely remembers her.
Nice to meet you again.
Again, huh?
What? You don't remember?
An idea that was present in the original and made sense, but now doesn't because this scene was purposely written to feel inconsequential. But they left it in and force you into not remembering her because the remake rarely gives you any dialogue options. I guess I'll take faithfulness where I can get it in this game. Oh, hey, look, another Sephiroth cameo right in the middle of this charming and romantic scene. It's been like a whole 3 minutes since we saw you, bro. You're beginning to embarrass yourself. This scene was supposed to be a quick beat where you bump into a pretty flower girl. Now it's a hot mess of supernatural bullshit. Here's the thing about Aerith Gainsborough. You find out later she's arguably one of the most important people on the planet, if not the most important person on the planet. There's supposed to be a sense of irony when you look back at this scene at how casual their little meet cute was. But Nomura isn't capable of nuance, so it's been ruined for shock value. This isn't your grandpa's Final Fantasy VII. Aerith's incredibly likable and adorable personality comes through in this scene at least. Then she runs off being chased by Dementors. TM. After that, for a good long while, this game is Final Fantasy VII. Don't get too comfortable though. This guy are sick. We get to go on a new mission with Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge. It expands the characters, makes them more relatable, and most importantly, it feels like it fits in the world of FF7. Because of this, I feel like Nomura probably had nothing to do with it. The next big deviation from the original is the second bombing mission. In the original, Cloud goes on the second bombing mission, but this time for reasons, Avalanche decides not to invite him. Probably because now that he's voice acted and has facial motion capture, everybody realizes what a huge dick he is. So Cloud's not going. How is this corrected? Thousands of time ghosts swarm the slums to twist a girl's ankle. Thousands. I'm serious. This is a thing that happens. Nomura said to his peers, I have this idea, and no one stopped him. What do you expect when you let the guy that designed this character direct? I love your hair antlers, Seymour. Wait a minute, how can Barrett, Jesse, and Tifa see the ghost now? I thought Aerith had to touch you for that to happen. Does Aerith sell her own flower after dark? Can the others see them because they touched Cloud? Is seeing the ghosts like a virus? That's never gonna be addressed. Stop asking questions and consume product. So anyway, the plot poltergeist managed to injure Jesse, so Cloud goes in her stead. This, of course, leads to him falling through the roof of the Sector 5 church and meeting Aerith. Oh yeah, I kinda remember you. You're the girl that touched me and made me see the manifestations of fate itself. Right. Okay, 23-year-old spoiler. This lovely young woman dies in the original. Brutally. It scarred a lot of teenagers. It could be the only reason anyone even remembers this game. By the way, it's Sephiroth that kills her. Sort of. Nomura actually has the lack of restraint to give Cloud flash forwards to Aerith's death. Ban the game for spoiling. This is baffling nonsense to anyone who didn't play the original, and I think it's a strong indicator that they're not going to pull the trigger on killing Aerith again. Finally, an Aerith resurrection rumor that's true. You just have to wait 23 years for them to F up the remake. I think it's worth mentioning that I was heartbroken when Aerith died in the original game. The chance to steer the story away from her death would have been irresistible to me as a kid, and even I'm not on board with this indulgent schlock. Begin tangent. Back in the day, there was even a lengthy petition calling for Aerith's revival by Japanese players sent to the original's director. He dismissed it, pointing out that there are many meanings in Aerith's death and her revival could never happen. 20 plus years later, and there's still a sizable faction of the fandom that en masse missed the point of the original, that continually bring up highly questionable loopholes in the vaguely explained magic she's attempting to use in order to justify her survival, overlooking that if she doesn't die and become one with the life stream, the planet will be torn to shreds by the meteor and magic they didn't really understand. Magic that, delayed by Sephiroth or not, has always been a really flawed way to deal with a meteor problem. This is something that could actually be improved. This is the kind of stuff you should actually be concerned with. There's also a ton of other behind-the-scenes stuff Aerith does when she's in the live stream. But hey, forget the minutia of all the magic bullshit. Much more importantly, this was a story about accepting loss, so somebody you cared about had to die, and the story was built from the ground up for it to be Aerith. It's truly bizarre because a lot of these people are the people hailing the ending of the remake as subversive genius. Yet they seem to want the story to be wrapped up in a nice little bow with a fairy tale ending now. Exhibit A, this nauseating meme making the rounds. Look, I'm a Clarith guy myself, and I always have been. Cool Ranch! But I'm not willing to accept cliche and juvenile writing that shatters the very core of the story to get my ship. That's being what's called selfish. Maybe she'll still die, but if she doesn't, I guess former director Katase doesn't have any interest in exploring those meanings again. At the same time, I understand that this was 20 years ago, and this game is not the sacred cow to him that it is to a lot of people. That's generally how art works, and it's completely fine. Reading interviews, I got the impression the dude didn't care to have a whole lot of input in the overall story. I can empathize with that, but unfortunately, I feel the story suffers greatly for it. End tangent. Reno shows up as he did in the original, and he and Cloud have a fight. Because Nomura, Cloud decides he's gonna decapitate Reno at the end of the fight. That's super not canon, bro. The canon Caspers don't like that, so they put Cloud and Aerith in timeout. You get to hang out with Aerith for quite a while, and the game's quite nice and lovely, and I enjoy spending time with 2020's version of Aerith Gainsborough. However, Aerith drops multiple hints that she's been through all this before and knows Cloud.
Quit acting like you know me.
Hey, Mom. I'm gonna go take Cloud over to Sector 7.
Many facepalms are had as it begins to sink in that the game is lowering itself to the use of overused sci-fi tropes that would get you an F in a junior high creative writing class. Seems Aerith has come down with a bad case of the Groundhog Days. From here out, I will refer to Aerith as New Game Plus Aerith. As you work your way through the game, thinking about the focused and honest Final Fantasy VII Remake that could have been, the script spookies make numerous more appearances. They also make numerous not appearances when it seems like they super should. It's almost like they're a flimsy plot contrivance that don't even follow their own rules and only show up when it suits the director. For instance, Wedge is supposed to fall from the Sector 7 pillar and goes sploosh, but thanks to a grappling hook he didn't have in the original, he manages to survive the fall. The Time Ghosts do nothing about this. Thank God, 15 more hours of fat jokes. Can't wait for that. It's implied they may rectify this later, but it's inconclusive. Movies and video games have taught me that if you don't see a character actually die on screen, you can pretty much guarantee that they are not dead. Biggs is also supposed to die on the Sector 7 pillar. The ghosts don't care. He's alright, I guess. Maybe they're big Hot Shots fans. But it's all Time Ghosts on deck to make sure Jessie blows herself up. I guess all her injuries are internal, so she can still look hot as she's on her deathbed. It's not really clear if she actually dies on screen either, so she could still be fine. I don't know. Does anybody die in this Disney XD bullshit? Scores of NPCs you do not conclusively see die on screen. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe these people. Nope, off-screen and inconclusive, doesn't count. I honestly can't think of anyone of any real consequence that the player interacts with before the plate drops that dies. That would imply loss, and we can't have that in this goody gumdrops cotton candy interpretation of the story. While it is good to show Avalanche's home base, Seventh Heaven destroyed, it's not the same as people dying. They even got rid of all the gore in the Shinra building. Sephiroth just walks by people instead of cutting them in half. Excuse me, sir. Sorry I was an edgelord in 1997. I'm trying to do better. The plot progresses more or less the same as it did in the original for a while. Shinra gets a hold of New Game Plus Aerith. They drop the Sector 7 plate on the Sector 7 slums. The game shows you Kate Sith, or Ketchi, if you've never had sex in your whole life. This is a character you get much later in the game in the original, so if you didn't play the original, it looks like a Sonic the Hedgehog OC is just hanging out, being real sad. Spoiler for the original and the remake, this little thing's actually a robot being controlled by this guy. I don't know why he can't just be sad in his office that all these people are dying. I don't know why he made his cutesy little cat robot go stand out on the ledge and go, no, more. Fan service, even if it's a disservice to the story. The gang wants to go save New Game Plus Aerith, but her adoptive mother doesn't want him to. This is so you can go experience more padding and side quests. After which, if you've scored enough points with New Game Plus Aerith, you're treated to a romantic scene between Cloud and New Game Plus Aerith. New Game Plus Aerith comes to Cloud in what may or may not be a dream. There was a scene like this in the original, so it's fine. Nomura breaks out his ham fists and has New Game Plus Aerith tell Cloud not to fall in love with her. You know, because Sephiroth is gonna kill her. We're really leaning into this New Game Plus thing, huh? You realize that if a character knows their own future, then they're not really the same character anymore, right? I applaud Nomura's boldness for excluding Aerith Gainsborough from the game. Had Nomura not eradicated my emotional investment in the story, this scene probably would have been very moving for me because it's finally a direct on-screen acknowledgement that there's love stuffs going on between Cloud Strife and Aerith Gainsborough. But I felt mostly numb as I experienced it, which made me very sad. Anyway, then New Game Plus Aerith rides away in a Roomba. Now the gang Batmans their way up the devastated plate to storm the Shinra building. One welcome change to the plot is Hojo does not try to get Red 13 to not Aerith. I guess the Time Ghost made him watch that movie Zoo and he changed his ways. Cloud, Tifa, and Barrett continue to battle their way up the Shinra building. They're swept away and shown a simulation of the Ancients. I really like this. You never really saw any of this stuff in the original. This is the kind of thing I was looking forward to. I like this. They are also shown a simulation of Neo Midgar. I also like this. This is all I wanted. This is all you had to do. It fits. It makes sense. What happened? Oh yeah. Sorry to bore you, Nomura. If you were so bored by the idea of doing this story again, maybe you should have stepped down as director. You know, after the entire year you didn't realize you were. Anyway, it appears that quote-unquote Sephiroth hacks the VR simulation somehow and hurls the gang into a recreation of the meteor falling on Midgar. Again, shoving in the audience's face a villain they've done nothing to establish. Again, spoiling and ruining events from the end of the original game. It's gorgeous, the artist worked very hard on it, the voice acting is outstanding, but it's all very stupid. They then cut away to another scene to get out of it, because they don't know how. Then they immediately cut back, and it's all hand-waved away as something that gave Barrett a stomach ache. Ooh. Hojo taunts New Game Plus Aerith in his laboratory. They really capture what a creepy asshole he is, as New Game Plus Aerith puts on the mother of all poker faces as he describes cataloging every bit of her mother's corpse. The subtlety in the animation and or facial mocap on Aerith as she hears this horrible shit is truly jaw-dropping. The characterization in this game is a bright spot. It's often phenomenal, and it's scenes like these that make it all so bittersweet as Nomura's fanfiction slowly but surely steals more and more of the show. Hojo almost lets it slip to Cloud that he recognizes him from his experiments. The retcon revenants are having none of this and swoosh him away. Ugh. Anyway, they free Aerith, they free Red 13, and we're off to the races. Oh, wait a minute, no we're not. We gotta do some more Nomura stuff now. New Game Plus Aerith seems to know Red 13, because of course she does. New Game Plus Aerith touches Red 13 on the head because he's being all grrrr. This somehow transfers all the knowledge of what the Whispers of Fate are to Red 13, even though New Game Plus Aerith says both before and after this point that she doesn't really know what their deal is. Good job. Red 13's voice acting is stellar. Nice work, Max Middleton. I wish Nomura wasn't making you say things that are a terrible distraction from the themes and story of the original. Whatever, he got paid. Then it's time for another exciting episode of Cloud Has a Psychotic Episode. He starts having flashes about his mom, Genova. Genova is a horrible ancient alien creature that fell to Earth thousands of years ago and wiped out the ancients. Shinra got a hold of its remains a while ago and they used it to create Sephiroth. He's a super soldier. I forgot to mention this. I'm just getting into the spirit of this remake. A while ago, Hojo forcefully injected Genova cells into Cloud, so Cloud is drawn to Genova. He wants mommy to kiss his boo-boos. It's revealed that Genova is being kept in a great big tank that looks important. I like this. In the original, Shinra just kind of threw Genova's remains in some kind of cyberpunk igloo. It's like Genova was just some kind of piece of shit they didn't really know what to do with. This is one of the things the remake improves upon. Cheers. Uh-oh, things are about to get stupid again. Cloud collapses. When he wakes up, the party's having a sit-down in New Game Plus Aerith's old room. Shinra decides to leave the party alone so they can powder their nose and finally figure out what the time ghosts are about. But before that, I will say this is another thing I think is really cool. Getting to see Aerith's old room in Shinra headquarters, I loved it.
Natural expansion, style and presentation.
New Game Plus Aerith reveals she's a descendant of the Ancients, and that they're called the Cetra, so stop calling them Ancients. It's ageist and offensive. Barrett says he's gonna go beat up Shinra, and that kicks a whole bunch of sand in the Time Ghost's wrinkly vagina faces, and things get all spoopy. Red 13 spews a bunch of Nomura fanfiction drivel about how the Time Ghosts are sent by the planet to make sure that destiny is fulfilled. Yeah, we kind of figured that out like 15 hours ago, bro. So they're not really time ghosts, they're fake ghosts. I don't care, I'm gonna call them time ghosts, because I hate them. Leave us a comment about how calling them time ghosts shows I wasn't really paying attention. I will for sure read it. Barrett says something that disturbed me as soon as I heard it.
So if we're destined for a bleak future, these whispers will try to keep us on that course?
The ending to the original Final Fantasy VII is famous for being pretty bleak. It's why we still remember it. It's why this remake even exists. This was the first time I realized that Nomura was attempting to quote-unquote fix the story of Final Fantasy VII. You guys didn't listen to enough of my ideas back in 1997. Well, I'll show you. I got Kingdom Hearts money now, bitches. No, Nomura. This is the turning point where the plot of the game truly goes off the rails and becomes offensively bad. From here out, Red 13 and especially New Game Plus Aerith stop acting like Red 13 and New Game Plus Aerith, and effectively become Nomura's mouthpieces to cryptically explain his tragically unnecessary meddling with the story. Anyway, now we know what the time ghosts are all about. Since it's been made clear that they're exacting the will of the planet, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to resist them. That's kind of Avalanche's whole deal, saving and respecting the planet. It's kind of shitty of you to think you know better than the planet. Oh well. And since the ghosts served the planet, it would have been a lot better to make them look like live stream stuff. Although I guess that would have given too much away. Part of me thinks Nomura's original idea was to have you punching copies of the original game's script, flying around like little bird books. Still, anything would have been better than clitoris licorice. The game gives us another one of many Tifa/Aerith moments to bait game journalists into writing endless articles. The party fights more Heartless from Kingdom Hearts. Then what's implied to be Sephiroth shows up and sends the party plummeting into a padding pit. Genova gets out. You follow the purple goo instead of the trail of gore, because this game's for babbies. When the gang finally gets to President Shinra's office, he is not dead, stabbed through the back by Sephiroth's sword like he is in the original. Instead, there's lots of talking, walking around, and Barrett just stands there while the guy pulls a gun from his desk and points it at him. Sephiroth somehow manifests and runs through President Shinra. The time ghosts rejoice. The timeline is preserved. Except it isn't. Sephiroth stabs Barrett instead of New Game Plus Aerith. No! Don't worry, the time ghosts fix it immediately by sucking on Barrett's supple nipples, removing any emotional impact or dramatic weight from his death. Nothing matters. Then quote-unquote Sephiroth turns into Genova. The game throws another major bummer at you as it blows the Genova load right here and now. Pretty reckless. But hey, this is the end of a 30-hour journey. Gotta have a big boss fight. Choosing to release this game episodically was a super good idea. Anyway, the party beats Jenova no problem. So it'll be super scary when Jenova shows up again. Jenova turns back into a Sephiroth clone. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, this story already had clones in it. Not that the remake took any time at all to explain that to you. So once again, if you didn't play the original, go fuck yourself. Nah, don't do that. I'll do the things the game can't be bothered with. These guys in robes are clones of Sephiroth. Clones in name only, though. They're just people that were injected with Sephiroth's cells. We'll talk more about this later. Right here and now, I just want you to keep it in the back of your mind that this story already had clones in it. Anywho, then another Sephiroth manifests and Superman flies away with Jenova. Uh-oh, turns out the Sephiroth that made off with Jenova is also a clone. At this time, I would like to remind you that at no point in the Shinra building in the original game did you ever see Sephiroth, and the story was infinitely better for it. Cloud fights Rufus, the son of the dead president, in his sexy Hot Topic belt dress. Lulu would be proud. The game gets pretty rad again as the gang escapes Shinra. Then it gets stupid again as the entire building is engulfed in destiny demons. I guess it's somebody in accounting's destiny to twist their ankle. Get fucked, Janet. Cloud fights what would be the final boss of this game if Tetsuya Nomura had a modicum of self-control. It's a big, crazy, cool robot called Motorball. It looks very good, and everyone involved with the art direction, character design, and score did an exceptional job. Okay, enough of that. It's time for Final Fantasy VII Remake to jump the sperm whale. This story's about to get Game of Thrones'd. Instead of the subtle, introspective, and downbeat scene from the original when you reach the end of the highway as the sun comes up, and the now bonded protagonists prepare themselves to venture out into the wide open world beyond Midgar with a newfound sense of purpose, Sephiroth shows up. Sephiroth says Destiny comes. Destiny sounds like she's having a better night than I am. Meanwhile, back in 2007, the Final Fantasy VII prequel game Crisis Core is ending. We see Zack Fair. Who? The scene that follows is no doubt the worst offender when it comes to alienating people who never played the original. But don't worry, Salty Rick is here. Zack Fair is Cloud Strife's old war buddy. Also, he and Aerith used to bang. That's pretty important too. I think he deflowered our favorite flower girl. He's also the protagonist of the video game Crisis Core. Crisis Core happens before the events of Final Fantasy VII. This scene is the ending to Crisis Core, and without Zack Fair and what happens to him in this scene, there is no Cloud Strife as we know him. That's right, the game has dropped us down into the climax of a prequel. Cool. This scene takes place several miles outside of Midgar, and assumedly several months before when our protagonists are now. Are you having an aneurysm yet? In the original ending to Crisis Core, Midgar was not engulfed in millions of time ghosts. It's all converging!
It is happening.
It looks like the time ghosts put a big stupid time dilation bubble thing all around Midgar. I bet it smells like Nomura farts inside. The whole city's getting Dutch ovened. We gotta stick a pin in this for now, because the game's gonna flash us back to the highway. Bye, Zack, in the past at the ending of your game. Only now there's time ghosts at the end of your game. What's that about? I wonder what our plucky protagonists and Sephiroth are up to. Maybe they're having a nice little sit down and working out their— Oh, he's cutting a hole through reality itself. Didn't know Sephiroth could do that, did you? I think it's clear at this point that we're dealing with a new game plus Sephiroth. Great, another character that's read the script. This is where New Game Plus Sephiroth is going to explain how he was able to influence all the timeline deviations. How he was able to create a massive butterfly effect by just appearing in a couple vague visions to Cloud. You know, Jesse's foot not getting hurt. Jesse's foot not getting hurt again. Aerith doing something she's not supposed to. She's just standing there. She was going to bump into Cloud anyway. Avalanche deciding that Cloud shouldn't come on the second bombing mission. Reno and Aerith both goading Cloud into a fight that would result in him attempting to decapitate Reno when in the original you just left. Making sure Wedge had a grappling hook, etc., etc., etc. Yeah, I'm just kidding. That shit doesn't happen. He just regurgitates more and more fluff. But he does explain that the decision to release this game episodically has led them down a dark path. The Motorball just wasn't an epic enough final boss, and nobody at Square has the balls anymore to tell Nomura no. Sephiroth heads through the portal and very seductively invites Cloud to join him. Cloud is super DTF. Down to fight. But New Game Plus Aerith stops him and tells him this is the point of no return because she knows what's going on and doesn't know what's going on completely at random. She waves her hand and does some Kingdom Hearts bullshit at the portal. Aerith is just straight up magic now. And not the piddly kind of magic you use in combat or maybe project yourself into someone's dreams. The kind you can use to alter a tear in the fabric of reality. Okay, video game. And one of the most meta and passive-aggressive lines in the game that I am sure Tetsuya Nomura wrote, New Game Plus Aerith says on the other side is freedom. Yeah, I don't think anyone at Square really wanted to make this game. Knowing basically nothing about the decisions they're making that will affect every life on the planet, the party says F yeah and jumps through the portal. I guess that's okay, they've never been the responsible type.
Do not attempt to adjust the story. We control the narrative. You are about to experience the awe and mystery of modern gaming's most epic big-lipped alligator moment in the Nomuraverse.
On the other side of the portal, the party finds what appears to be an alternate universe version of Midgar that's completely abandoned. I'm not kidding. Spoilers, this is so we can have a gigantic destructive set-piece battle and not feel bad about the millions of people that it would kill. A giant grape-flavored tornado sucks up the party, and they find themselves floating high above alternate universe Midgar. I guess it's cool that Cloud finally gets to fulfill his namesake. What I am about to say is the apex of my issues with this remake. In a vulgar display of adolescence that would make Michael Bay blush, Tetsuya Nomura now has his face a fate titan inside of a destiny tornado.
Fuck.
These words cause me great pain. Hey, Hamaguchi-san, this is what I would describe as reckless. Remember 90 some odd minutes ago when we were a group of plucky eco-terrorists fighting an evil mega corporation? Good times. The characters have grown so much since then. To be fair, it's possible somebody higher up at Square told Nomura he's got to have a cooler final boss fight than Motorball at the end of this thing. And he was like, okay. And maybe he's not quite the hack writer that I make him out to be, and he thought that he would set it up early in the game. Regardless if that's the case or not, I find his execution of this goal to be distasteful, trashy, and obnoxious. Let's be real here, this thing is a giant punching bag with either a picture of the fandom or the people at Square that tried to rein in Nomura tapes to it. Or maybe it's a representation of his own anxieties and resentments about the game and he overreacted. Regardless, it's a self-absorbed up-its-own-ass immersion killer. However, Nomura has a credit as an artist, and if he designed this creature, he did a pretty good job. When I can figure out where its head is, it looks pretty badass. For a lot of people, I guess that's enough. I guess those of us that wanted a cohesive narrative can kiss the south end of a north-facing chocobo. Before you leave a remark in the comments section that I will for sure read, I understand that in the original, the planet was shown as being able to manifest gigantic biological weapons to protect its interests. I don't really think that's what this is. I think that's just something that disillusioned fans are coming up with to try to make sense of this recklessness. I would be slightly more forgiving if the game made any effort to connect this creature to the weapons from the original game, but it doesn't. So it's not something I'm going to factor into this review, and it would do nothing to change the fact that this is excessive, too much too soon, and feels like it shouldn't be in the game. In fact, if anything, it looks to have more of a connection to one of the final bosses from Kingdom Hearts.
Gosh, we're gonna need a lot of friendship to defeat this enemy.
Setting aside any rationale behind this boss, in the remake, the party is now able to face and slay what might as well be a god before they even leave Midgar. Bear in mind, we are not even a third of the way through the original story of this game. Anyway, Cloud turns into his anime superhero self from Advent Children that Nomura loves, since he directed it, and bounces from debris to get all up in that Fate Titan's grill. And we get a big ol' surprise. We're not gonna fight the Fate Titan. We got some mini-bosses first. But these aren't any mini-bosses. Now we have to fight what very well may be Cloud, Barrett, and Tifa from the original timeline. This one fights with a big sword, this one fights with a big gun, and this one fights with its fists. And just in case you think I'm jumping to conclusions, if you scan them with Assess, you get a description that says an entity from a future timeline that has manifested in the present day. It fights with a whatever it's fighting with to protect the future that gave shape to it. They're even more heavily implied to be these chuckle fucks from Advent Children. There's a bunch of tedious theorizing about this right now. Oh, this thing's left-handed and so is Kadaj, but Cloud is right-handed. This thing's right-handed, but Laws is left-handed, and Tifa uses both of her fists instead of just one. This detail matters, but this one doesn't. These guys are quote-unquote remnants of Sephiroth. They're kind of like his Advent children. I'm not gonna get into it because it's stupid. I guess we know what they decided to do after they were defeated in Advent Children now, though. Hey, you guys wanna go be time ghosts?
Yeah, okay.
But since they're essentially Sephiroth, it doesn't make any sense for them to be helping the Force that's trying to keep Destiny on course, as that is the exact opposite goal of Sephiroth. Because if Destiny stays on course, he gets his ass kicked. Also, Alvin, Simon, and Theodore here died at the end of Advent Children, so 3 more deaths undone. Making death meaningless is a really smart thing to do to the story of Final Fantasy VII. It also doesn't make a whole lot of sense for Cloud, Barrett, and Tifa to try to kill their past selves. No matter which way you look at it, some part of it doesn't make any goddamn sense. Shocking, I know. Knowing Nomura, they're probably Huey, Dewey, and Louie. I'll tell you one thing, I don't give a were-rat's ass about what this as-yet untranslated Japanese guidebook has to say about it. Dissect all the enemies as Professor Hojo do. Where else have we recently had the need to buy cash grab supplemental materials to make sense of an incoherent plot? And you know you can always trust official guidebooks. Here's my theory, it's a stupid, meaningless Easter egg and we're all wasting our precious time on Earth thinking about it. Look, it doesn't matter who these bosses are supposed to represent. Nothing's gonna change the fact that by this point, the game has peed in the ball pit harder than R. Kelly after a bender at Oktoberfest. I am deeply saddened to inform you that R. Kelly peeing on people has become relevant again. Does anyone still want to make the claim that they quote-unquote didn't change anything, just added details? Remember in the original, when the party jumped into the asshole of the universe, and they had to fight time-traveling Tron Ghost versions of Sephiroth's knuckle babies from Advent Children? That was my favorite part. So now the real fun starts. Each one of their deaths beams a clip show of Advent Children into your head. These clips are recreations of classic moments from the original game. If there's any doubt left in your mind that Nomura has a problem with the story of the original Final Fantasy VII, Red 13 confirms that these are visions of a future timeline in which they fail. That's right, straight from the lab rat dog's mouth. The original haunting and impactful ending to Final Fantasy VII that taught you bittersweet victories are a thing, that people are robbed from you and you just have to suck it up and march on. Well, that was the shit ending. The ending that made you tear up when the prelude hit and it finally sunk in that you were never gonna get her back. Well, that was the Garbo ending. The moment that made you realize that video games could be about more than jumping on grumpy mushrooms and dodging turtle shells. That video games were now an art form that could give you real feels. Well, to that. No, but unexpected always equals good, though. I wonder if people who think that enjoy being mugged. Now we gotta stop the original timeline from happening. Get your Final Fantasy 15 and Final Fantasy 13-2 crap out of my Final Fantasy 7. Both of those games had disastrous story issues. Why are you borrowing plot devices from them? Literally nobody asked for this. Okay, back in 2004, little Billy Parrish of Akron, Ohio asked for this. Dementors are so freaking sick. Can we put Dementors in everything? I'm gonna punch that child. Don't get upset, he's not a child anymore. It's okay to punch him now. Anyway, you run around some more on the surreal landscape of Midgar rubble. You see more clips of Advent Children. You're told the game that shockingly helped you grow as a person was a joke. Then you eventually defeat the Fate Titan. Leave me a comment telling me that the Fate Titan's name is actually Whisper Harbinger. I will for sure read it. With Galactus defeated, it's time to truly leave nothing to do in Part 2 and defeat Sephiroth. A mind-blowing scene of Sephiroth summoning Meteor, orbited by a legion of time ghosts that could only number in the trillions plays. It's outrageously indulgent, but it's a feast for the eyes, unlike I've seen in a while. But it's another unfortunate case of way too much, way too soon. Sephiroth then begins to hurl entire buildings at the party. Sephiroth's motive in the original game was to basically become God. He already has. I guess he's just bored and fucking with Cloud cracks him up. Using the kind of telekinesis that would make Jean Grey's head explode a million times over, he launches what appears to be the entire Shinra building at the party. Get fucked, Janet! Remember though, we're in some wacky alternate universe where the entirety of Midgar is abandoned, so none of this matters, and you feel that. But at least Janet's okay. Oh, put some ice on now, you'll be fine. Cloud then begins to exhibit a level of superhuman ability that makes you wonder why every single battle in the entire game wasn't over in one hit. It's here that the game basically becomes the climax to Advent Children. Cloud is shown to be able to cut entire trains in half with his sword. And look, it's not that I have any kind of problem with the ridiculous excesses of anime fights. In fact, I think they're pretty badass. It's just that this isn't an anime, and the characters look hyper-realistic now. And this is too much too soon. Again, it's gotten silly, like the ending to Advent Children. At least though, by that point in the timeline, I could buy that Cloud could do this kind of ridiculous stuff. And I know he's got enhanced abilities due to the experiments that Hojo did on him. But only a couple months ago, this guy was drooling on himself. And a couple hours ago, he couldn't bust open a rusty door. He was also only ever a grunt in the Shinra army. He would have never have received sword acrobatics training. This has always been a problem with the story. You could have taken the time to fix it instead of, fuck it, I don't care. I'm just trying to say none of this shit feels earned. I don't even have a problem with this Avengers movie level of spectacle. It just shouldn't be happening yet. There's nowhere to go from here. I don't know how they could possibly think such a thing, but maybe they thought the first part would bomb, so they just sprayed their spunk everywhere. Anyway, everybody fights Sephiroth. It all feels like you're fighting him on what would be his stage were this a fighting game. He sprouts his one black wing from Kingdom Hearts and Advent Children, but he can't overcome the power of friendship. And the gang beats Sephiroth. But not really. Sephiroth now sweeps Cloud away to the edge of creation. Alone at last, Sephiroth can finally tell Cloud how he feels. Cloud Strife, will you make me the luckiest Tumblr blog in the world? Because the game thinks it still hasn't cannibalized enough big Sephiroth moments for the first game, we're treated to a shot-for-shot recreation of Cloud's final mental confrontation with Sephiroth from the original. You can guarantee you're not going to see that again. Or maybe you will.
It's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
This really is a George Lucas kind of situation. You have one of the creators of the original returning, only now they have a lot more influence. More than they probably should. And everything's very shiny and new. But then you find out it's all style over substance and it goes terribly wrong in the end. Jesus, this even has the screen clutter problem that the prequels do.
I may have gone too far in a few places.
I know this is intended to feel like some kind of fan service, but I would feel more serviced as a fan if you weren't misapplying gigantic moments from the end of the original game without context, rendering them meaningless nonsense. I know I'm using deadpan for comedic effect, but I'm legitimately sad right now. Anyway, Cloud and Sephiroth snuggle on the edge of the universe. Sephiroth asks Cloud to defy destiny with him, driving the final nail in the coffin that this story ever had themes of environmentalism in it, which is a shame because it seems more relevant now than it did in 1997. Whatever, nothing matters. Cloud and Sephiroth cross swords. Sephiroth displays that he sucks at social distancing, and they start piping in the music from the Forgotten City, which is where Aerith dies. Sephiroth says the 7 seconds till the end thing, which people have discovered is how long his fall lasts while he's plummeting towards Aerith to kill her in the original. He asks Cloud what he's gonna do with those 7 seconds. Cloud says he's gonna make a Snapchat with 3 seconds to spare. Meanwhile, in an alternate timeline / parallel universe / pocket dimension / who gives a we rejoin Zack Fair on the cliffs outside Midgar. In the original ending to Crisis Core, Zack dies defending Cloud. It's a big deal. It's very, very sad, and it almost made me tear up. It rivals Aerith's death. I'm starting to think the propensity to die a sudden and tragic death can be transmitted sexually. Before Zack dies, he bequeaths Cloud the Buster Sword and names him his living legacy. Cloud is suffering from Mako poisoning at the time, and still is. Mako is the form of energy that the Shinra Power Company uses to power the entire city of Midgar. They suck it out of the planet's life stream, which is why the city of Midgar is killing the planet. It's why there's nothing but a barren desert around it. Don't feel too bad though, they make a killing renting it out to Burning Man. The Shinra Power Company also uses Mako as a steroid in their soldiers. Cloud's been all shot up with Mako and Genova cells, so he's having a hard time today. Cloud is so confused and traumatized that he absorbs many of Zack's memories, but only the memories that he was present for, replacing Zack in those memories with himself. Mako poisoning can basically be like severe brain damage. Explains a lot about Cloud.
You want me to do what to your vagina?
I don't know excuses Mom's got for naming him Cloud, though. I'm guessing a sweaty and embarrassing night at a Grateful Dead concert. Cloud forms a new sort of personality and heads off toward Midgar to become a mercenary, which is what Zack intended to do before he died. I know that Buster Sword is heavy, Cloud, but it's kind of a dick move to leave your best friend's corpse to be torn apart by animals. I already don't like your new personality. Anyway, the point is, Cloud Strife isn't really who he says he is. When he remembers himself as a soldier first class, he's remembering himself as Zack. What a poser. This is an outstanding example of how to naturally subvert a story without figuratively and literally yanking people out of its universe. But it requires patience, a long build-up, and subtlety. And Tetsuya too much too soon, Nomura doesn't know how to do those things. Also, now that you know Cloud's a big phony, I would like to take this opportunity to ask you to keep in the back of your mind that the original story already contained the trope of false memories and unreliable narrator. Anyway, back to our little pocket dimension where, surprise, Zack doesn't die. In this new pocket universe, Zack manages to defeat hundreds upon hundreds of well-armed Shinra troops by himself. I mean, why not? Fuck it. It's not like his death meant anything to the story. So, a bag of potato chips blows by Zack. On the bag of potato chips is the Shinra mascot, Stamp. It's a little dog. You've seen Stamp throughout the game, but he's always been a hound. On this bag of potato chips, Stamp is now a terrier, confirming that we are now in a third alternate universe.
Somewhere in the past, the timeline skewed into this tangent.
Why does anyone let Tetsuya Nomura near words? This game has been Xehanorted. Also, I don't really know why a power company is making potato chips, but like many things in this game, I don't think we're supposed to think about it. Would you like some General Electric cookies? Electrifying flavor. But enough about pocket dimension potato chips. Let's get back to the time ghosts. In the distance, the millions of time ghosts swarming Midgar go poof, and magical pixie dust rains down. Assumedly because the party whooped up on them time ghosts in their universe, they got whooped in all universes. Now across the entire Final Fantasy VII multiverse, which I am incredibly depressed to say is a thing. There's no fate but what you make. I hate everything. Hey, you defeated fate, so Biggs gets to live. I can't wait for a sitcom, 2.5 side characters. Let's check in with Cloud and the gang in their timeline now that they're done deciding they know what's best for not billions of lives or trillions of lives, but infinite lives across the entire Final Fantasy VII multiverse. I said it again. Blech. The party's back in assumedly their original universe with exactly zero explanation. Guys, this story is so much better now that we don't know what's gonna happen.
You uncultured charlatans simply can't appreciate the subtle genius of Tetsuya Nomura.
I guess Sephiroth's a good sport and dropped them all back off after they kicked his ass. The party is standing in the same place that Zack died in the original version of events, or thereabouts. They've already left Midgar, and one of my favorite moments from the original has more or less been stricken from the record. The characters, like many players, are standing around in a haze after experiencing the galaxy-brained ending. New Game Plus Aerith isn't magic anymore and is back to not knowing what to do. Cloud wants to go after Sephiroth, but it's unclear if the Sephiroth from this timeline has even appeared to them. I think it's safe to say that the only Sephiroth that we've encountered is New Game Plus Sephiroth, who somehow knows the future. Or maybe it's Advent Children Sephiroth, who's found some way to time travel.
I will never be a memory.
So maybe now there's two Sephiroths to deal with. Lucky for me, I'm not the one who has to sort out this irresponsible narrative rat's nest. Moving on. So as the characters walk off into the sunset, we're shown a vision of Zack carrying Cloud's busted ass back to Midgar in their respective reality. Coincidentally, the party is passing them in the exact same place in their universe. Okay. Aerith and Zack seem to sense each other through the wall of reality. Something, if used appropriately in another story, would probably both warm my heart and break it. But I feel nothing now. Didn't they do this shit in Doctor Who once? Oh my god, they've done all this shit in Doctor Who once. But it's so subversive and original. I am now gonna say some words and phrases for no reason at all. Star Trek, Stargate, Fringe, The X-Files, Sliders, Supernatural, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Angel, Dragon Ball, Devs, Digimon, Avengers Endgame, Back to the Future, Full Metal Alchemist, The Man in the High Castle, Spider-Man, Into the Spider-Verse, Chrono Trigger, Chrono Cross, Eternal Darkness, Mortal Kombat 9, Final Fantasy 13-2, Kingdom Hearts, Edge of Tomorrow, Red Dwarf, The Cloverfield Paradox, Naruto, Time Lapse, My Little Pony, Equestria Girls, Another Earth, Source Code, Paradox, Twin Peaks, The Butterfly Effect, The Butterfly Effect 2, The Butterfly Effect 3, what the fuck? Marvel Comics, DC Comics, Injustice, The One, The Legend of Zelda, Community?
Just so you know, Jeff, you were not creating 6 different timelines.
I'll be damned. Sonic the Hedgehog, Donnie Darko, Big Time, Sliding Doors, The Family Man, The Twilight Zone, Legacy of Kain, Final Destination, Babylon 5, Dark Shadows, Doctor Who, CW's Legends of Tomorrow, CW's Arrow, CW's Supergirl, goddammit, CW's The Flash, complete with Time Ghosts, God of War 2, Quantum Leap, of course, Dark, Continuum, every Terminator movie and the TV show, Scrubs, Charmed, Smallville, The OC, Hercules, Rick and Morty, Ben 10 Omniverse, It's a Wonderful Life. Watch a television, see a movie screen, read a book. I can understand the stance that this is clever and original if you have never experienced any media outside of Final Fantasy VII Remake, and that is it. The tropes that Nomura introduces at the end of this game go all the way back to Greek mythology and have been done to death. The concepts of alternate universes, predeterminism, and cutting the strings of fate are ancient. I have become agitated. I apologize. Oh wait, I forgot to tell you that the game is over now. New Game Plus Aerith laments the steel sky of Midgard no longer over her head. The camera pans into the clouds above and we are presented with text that says the unknown journey will continue. At the time I'm recording this, I really don't think it will for me. We're in an alternate universe now where I don't care about anything. That's right, Nomura thought a story about a mercenary that joins an eco-terrorist group with a heart of gold fighting an evil power company and the insane super soldier they created using the cells of an evil ancient alien that employs shape-shifting and astral projection to summon a meteor into the planet to crack it open and absorb its magic reincarnation mist to become a god needed time travel and or alternate universe tropes added to it. I'd now like you to move from the back of your mind to the front of your mind that the story already included misnomer clones and false memory / unreliable narrator tropes as well. I was unable to take a breath large enough to fit those things into my rant just now. I just asked you to remember them so I wouldn't suffocate. Thank you. It's about this time, if they haven't already, that people will start claiming that the original story was convoluted trash to begin with, so who cares? I don't agree that the original story was trash, but I can absolutely admit that it had its problems. I agree that it was convoluted, a lot of it due to a bad translation and too many writers in the room. However, it was almost perfectly paced and very well executed as a whole. It managed to make millions of people care about little blocks moving around on the screen. And just because it wasn't Shakespeare shouldn't be licensed to make it worse. A good remake should fix plot holes, not make literally infinite more. I can't wait for Phase 2 of the Final Fantasy VII Cinematic Multiverse. I already pre-ordered my tickets to Cloud Strife in the Multiverse of Madness. Please someone kill me, and keep Nomura away from me so the dramatic integrity of my death isn't undone. Anyway, honestly, there are things in the original story that could have gone. Instead of trimming fat, they added it. Instead of getting Final Fantasy VII a personal trainer, Tetsuya Nomura sent Final Fantasy VII to KFC with a $100 bill. Get ready, it's time for the actual point of the video. Congratulations, you made it. There's a very specific reason on this many-headed beast to why this game disillusioned and disenfranchised me. Problem with these alternate universe / divergent timeline tropes that Nomura is obsessed with is that unless you're a very clever writer, which in my opinion Nomura is not, it's incredibly easy to make your characters feel like they're not special. It's incredibly easy to make them feel expendable. I think this fatal side effect of these tropes is the core reason why a lot of people hate this ending. For instance, Cloud Strife is no longer the Cloud Strife. He's just a Cloud Strife. I don't care about what happens to this dude because you told me he's an alternate universe doppelganger. I don't care what happens to any of these people now. And it's not nostalgia talking. All of these new versions of the characters completely had me. The characterization is almost perfect. Nomura, you undermined all of these people's hard work. Whatever, they got paid. Another fatal flaw of time tomfoolery in the hands of an iffy writer is that it's easy for them to come off as a lack of commitment and a lack of confidence in story choices they make because they have a built-in undo button. Oh, Aerith Gainsborough died a sudden and tragic death? Just hit the undo button. She's alive in some other timeline. Who gives a shit? Even still, if Aerith's death occurs, my brain is just gonna make that happen. This is why at the top of the video I said Tetsuya Nomura introduces the worst possible trope you could introduce to a story that's about accepting loss. You've robbed this universe of its permanence. But Rick, you salty son of a bitch, you say. Now that they've defeated the Destiny demons, if someone dies, they're gonna stay dead. See my previous statement about not caring what happens to these time clones. But I really think you should commit to the bit, Nomura. Don't pull a Disney Star Wars and backpedal. Kill Tifa, redeem Sephiroth, and have him marry Cloud. Have Vincent open Midgar's first Hot Topic. Kyrie Kanan. And Rufus Shinra will keep you in business buying up all them belt dresses. Have Red 13 die of both canine and feline leukemia. Throw in the vampire version of Cloud from Kingdom Hearts with his mummy sword. Why not? Have Sid and Shara go to couples counseling. Have the final confrontation be the party fighting all Sephiroths from all timelines on the surface of Meteor, which is now a giant ice cream scoop covered in flesh-eating bicycles. Have Zack make it back to Aerith in some meaningless pocket dimension so he can dilly-dally her shilly-shally and pop out a whole bunch of mercenary florist kids. All while Cloud continues to have absolutely no idea what to do with the numerous women who would like to accept his precipitation. Although I guess in this new third timeline, Cloud doesn't get all that Zack energy, so maybe the Cloud harem doesn't form here. Begone, thoughts. For real, I'm saying little Popeye-armed Lego-looking Cloud from 1997 has more emotional presence to me than this Cloud with all his millions of polygons, superb voice acting, and lifelike animation because of misguided tropes that are woefully misplaced in the world of FF7. I don't care about this Cloud. I care about this Cloud even less. You've taken away the thing that makes him Cloud, and if you have any sense, you'll never show this Zack or this Cloud again. Hand wave it away as symbolism that they've beaten fate. Let this new third universe crawl under the porch and die like the sick possum that it is. I'm not joking around though, people really do think they're gonna kill Tifa instead of Aerith to be subversive. Which would be truly hilarious because it defeats the purpose of both characters. Aerith, the last ancient with strong ties to the planet who sacrifices herself either advertently or inadvertently to transcend and pull strings from beyond the grave. Tifa, the childhood friend who's there for Cloud in the aftermath of Aerith's death and helps him rediscover his memories. Something Aerith is unable to do because she hasn't known Cloud all that long. I'm not saying it's impossible to do a role reversal with these two characters, but it would require clever writing and... yeah. I'll regain a small sliver of respect if this all pans out to be a red herring to give you false hope when it comes to saving Aerith. But the time ghosts were a long and stupid way to go there. And again, it doesn't change the fact that these characters are divergent timeline Xerox copies of the characters that I actually cared about. What's also tragic about all this is how unnecessary it all was. You could have released the same game without the goddamn time ghosts and that ridiculous ending and everyone would have been overjoyed. Literally no one would have said, but where was the ham-fisted meta commentary about the game's development? Where was the Fate Titan? But if we just absolutely had to play the What If game, why don't you just borrow some of that hyper-advanced 2007 tech from Mass Effect and refocus the effort you put into all the padding into offering branching plot paths? Why don't you just borrow some of that Omega level 1995 tech from Chrono Trigger and offer alternate endings? I truly feel this would have made everybody happy who could be made happy. That way people can avoid Nomura's fan fiction if they want to. The only way you can avoid it now is to not play the game. Although when this thing comes to PC, I hope a modder steps up and decides to be a hero. Also, believe it or not, I'm actually somebody who loves what-if scenarios so long as they don't supplant the main canon story. I would have been more than thrilled to pay for some kind of honest DLC after the fact called Final Fantasy VII: Hymn of Divergence. Instead, people paid for a game called Final Fantasy VII Remake and got Final Fantasy VII Flatulence of Nomura. Leave me a comment saying that remake means different. I will for sure read it. Remake means whatever the developers say it means. Of all of those terms, remaster is the only one that has any kind of solid definition. Remake, reimagine, reboot, resent. They're all kind of meaningless. It's the developer's responsibility to let you know what they intend to do with it. In my opinion, they were reckless in how they represented this game. It honestly would have been better if they didn't say anything about what they intended to do as far as faithfulness is concerned. Like I said earlier, if you think the only thing they tinkered with was style and presentation, I can't even begin to fathom your brain space. Also, Nomura, you said this game would not be connected to the compilation of Final Fantasy VII, which is Final Fantasy VII's very hit or miss expanded universe. These dudes are from your movie that you made, Advent Children. That's in the compilation of Final Fantasy VII. And these events are from Crisis Core. Crisis Core is in the compilation of Final Fantasy VII. This chick is from a book in the compilation of Final Fantasy VII. Everywhere online lists the remake as part of the compilation of Final Fantasy VII. I'm not going to say anything sassy. I'm just going to let this information sit here for a minute. Okay. And hey, I know producer Yoshinori Kitase recently said that they're not going to drastically change the story in Part 2. Now he suddenly seems to care, asking us to assume the story of FF7 will continue as FF7 always has. Here's the thing, I find it baffling that anybody would take Square at their word at this point. That seems kind of reckless to me. It's not really something I'm going to factor into my thoughts because even if they're being genuine, I still don't care because of the damage the ending did to the characters and my connection to them. Kitase also uses the word assume. I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that assume is going to be the new reckless when it comes to Part 2. I wonder what assume is in Japanese. Oh my god, what if all this stuff has just been mistranslated and this has all been a huge misunderstanding? I tell you what though, if I was on that development team, I wouldn't be saying shit, because chances are this dude's gonna make me look more dishonest than a one-eyed pirate next to a one-armed bandit on payday in a casino. Even if they stick more closely to the script in Part 2. The entire time I would be asking myself, well then what was the point of the time ghosts and defeating fate itself? Could it have been padding? I waited a very long time for this game, and a lot of it is exactly what I wanted. But the part of it that I didn't want so much that it's poison to the rest of it. Kid me would have gobbled up any and every chance to alter the story of Final Fantasy VII. Kid me would have butt-chugged the things that Nomura does to this game if I had played it only a few weeks after completing the original. My mind would have exploded from the graphics. In fact, back then, I dreamt up scenarios just like what this game does. However, 30-something me now understands the reason the game had such a lasting impact for 20-plus years are the very themes Nomura's editions are in total tonal conflict with. You can make the argument, and you'd probably be right, that the game I played in 1997 was made for 13-year-olds of 1997, and that this game made in 2020 is for 13-year-olds in 2020. In fact, I think I just figured out why I don't like the ending of the game. It's for dumbass 13-year-old kids. And I'm not one anymore. I'm a dumbass 30-something, and I need a role-playing game story to be rewarding and at least halfway make sense. But wait, if the game is made for teenagers in 2020, then why does the game assume that they played a 1997 game that would have came out when they weren't even born yet? And I'm sure digital downloads of the original's remaster have been good, but there's no way that they were that good. I don't know who this game is for, but as much as it legitimately breaks my heart to say these words, as someone who grew to deeply appreciate the themes of the original, I don't think it's for me. Oh well, most people seem to love the entirety of the game, or if they dislike the ending, the rest of the experience is so enjoyable that they look the other way. I'm honestly very jealous of people who can do that. I tell you what though, the Last Jedi crowd is probably gonna love the ending to this game. The trouble with the whole
Let the past die. Kill it if you have to.
philosophy is that if you're gonna be so aggressive, you damn sure better come up with something not just as good, but better than the past. So far, I've seen this antagonistic approach to storytelling only do one of two things. At worst, fail, and at best, be divisive. Allow me to translate Ryan Johnson's subtle dialogue. Old bad, new good! Here's a bottle of 1997 Merlot. Here's a 2020 Capri Sun. I think it's obvious which one of these two things is better. Really though, I guess the themes of accepting loss are still present. They've just jumped off the screen and become real, as some of us are forced to deal with the fact that we're never gonna get a truly faithful Final Fantasy VII Remake. That's okay, there's a couple worse problems to have in life. I honestly hope they turn it all around. I wanted to love this series very badly, and I hate the way I feel about it right now. Because Final Fantasy VII Remake is not a story. It's a story about a story, and that's the last thing I wanted from this. Nomura's tampering is a constant reminder that you're just playing a video game. It's sad what happens when a story becomes too famous for its own good. Or at least when its creators erroneously think it's become too famous. One of the saddest things I see people say after playing this is, so who was Sephiroth? It sucks when real-world pop culture zeitgeist stuff begins to very obviously influence story decisions in a fictional world. You gotta show people Sephiroth even though he wasn't revealed in the original until after you leave Midgard because marketing! Another whole weird angle to this is, like I said, I've been checked out on Final Fantasy since 2001. In the 19 years since, I think it's possible Squeenix fans have grown desensitized to Nomura's direction.
The X in all those nobodies' names isn't an X. It's called the Recusant Sigil, and Xehanort uses it to mark his BFFs and track their location. This even works on clothing, and that's... oh god. That's how they're able to track Sora throughout this game. Because they put an X on his shirt. Oh, and then this guy shows up. This is... young Xehanort! Yeah, so now there's time travel in this series. Good!
I hope that explains why some of us coming back after a long time find the ending so jarring and out of place. It seems like people are just used to this kind of shit now. The Kingdom Hearts series has also introduced a younger fan base to the Square Enix ecosystem. Naturally, they have different standards when it comes to storytelling.
He's making a new Organization 13 out of some time-traveling Xehanorts and a bunch of other friends called the... wait for it... real Organization 13.
Boo! I also think I'm done with remakes. They always seem to fall into the hands of the wrong people.
I'm going to turn the 2016 Ghostbusters remake into an improvised commentary on sexism.
Please don't. I tell you what though, if they can get rid of the time ghost for me, I'm not gonna be picky about Ghostbusters anymore.
Bustin' makes me feel good.
It really takes the gem out of my donut to see yet another long-lasting fandom needlessly divided because a producer or director can't resist the aroma of their own butt mud. But hey, that's the creatively bankrupt era we're in. Old things with brand recognition made new but made wrong, and in ways that betray the spirit of the original for the sake of shock value.
Sheer fucking hubris.
I love and welcome new ideas, but they need to work. They need to be good. They need to feel organic to the story you're telling. They need to be inspired, and there's nothing more uninspired than cutting and pasting. Here at the end, I just want to say that while I maintain introducing these tired sci-fi tropes to a story about accepting loss is some of the most misguided writing I think I've ever witnessed, we do owe Nomura for the awesome character designs of the original, which I believe Roberto Ferrari is responsible for updating brilliantly alongside him. As much as I've busted his chops in this video, I actually think Nomura is a very talented person. It's simply my opinion he should stick to pencils and ink and far away from Final Draft. And really, if I'm being honest, I'm more irritated with the rest of the staff who just let all this happen. Of course, Nomura wrote this kind of stuff into the script. It's what he does. He's a 50-year-old teenager. He can't help himself. What's your guys' excuse? You've written good stuff in the past. I guess they all said, nah, it'll be fine. And really, I guess they're not wrong. I understand I have an unpopular opinion on this. Anyway, I appreciate you giving me over an hour of your time time to go on a tangent-filled breakdown of something I was really disappointed with in a video game. A colossal thank you for your time, even if you decided to downvote the video. I understand. My feelings towards the story aside, it's a very good game. If through some miracle this Autopsy helped you deal with your feelings on this game, and or it entertained you, please remember to click like, click subscribe, ring the bell, and all that other obnoxious YouTube shit. Come on back for our Let's Roast of the game. It'll probably be a lot funnier and less depressing. Welcome back to 30-something wearing a Donald Duck hat gets angry at video game. I'm gonna go now, Kupo. I'm Rick Wolf, and this was my take on Final Fanfic 7 Remake. Leave me a comment on how I'm mispronouncing every single character's name. I will for sure read it.